Assalamualaikum and good day everyone. My name is Maizatul Aulia binti Syamsul Hasmi and today I will be presenting my proofreading and editing report for assessment 2. Before I begin, here is a brief overview of my presentation. First, I will introduce the article that I analyzed, then I will present a summary of my findings, and then I will be moving on to discussing the language errors that I identified. After that, I will move on to the context analysis and content analysis. Lastly, I will end the presentation with a short conclusion. For this assessment, I selected a journal article that discussed the impact of social media on teenagers. I chose this article because the topic is relevant and relatable, especially since social media plays a major role in the life of teenagers today. For my analysis, I focus on the article from the abstract section until the last point discussing the positive impacts of social media. Throughout this section, I identified several issues related to language, context, and content. Overall, I identified a total of 12 language errors in the article. These errors include punctuation, word choice, redundancy, wordiness, and fragment. Besides language errors, I also found several issues related to context and content. Among all the categories, word choice and punctuation errors appeared the most frequently. This shows that although the article discussed a relevant topic, there are still several areas that can be improved to make the writing more clearer and more effective. The first category that I would like to discuss is punctuation. The first examples involve a missing comma from the conjunction and. Without the comma, the sentence becomes slightly difficult to read because the ideas are not separated clearly. The second example is a comma splice. This happens when two complete sentences are joined together using only a comma. In academic writing, that is considered a grammatical error because each independent clause should either be separated with a full stop or connected properly using the right punctuation. Next, I will discuss word choice errors. This is one of the most common categories that are found in the article. The first example is the use of the word certain in the phrase certain impacts. I found this word to be quite vague because it does not clearly explain what type of impacts the writer is referring to. Therefore, I replace it with the word various to make the meaning clearer. The second example is the word ingested. In this context, the writer wanted to show that teenagers are heavily involved in the digital world. However, the word ingested is usually related to consuming food or substances. So, in this context, the word ingested is not suitable. For that reasons, I changed it to immerse, which better reflect the intended meaning. The next category is redundancy. Redundancy happens when unnecessary words are included even though the meaning is already clear. For example, the phrase recent quick advancements contains the word quick, which is not really needed because the idea of advancement already suggests progress or development. Another example is the phrase is that because. In this sentence, both that and because are used to introduce a reason which creates repetition. Although redundancy does not always change the meaning of a sentence, it can make the writing less concise and less professional. The last language error that I will discuss in this presentation is subject-verb agreement. In this example, the verb develops does not agree with the subject in the clause. Since the subject is plural, the verb should also be in its plural form. Therefore, develops should be changed to develop. Although this is a small error, it is important to correct it because academic writing should be grammatically accurate. Next, I will move on to the context analysis. Based on my analysis, the article is written for an academic audience such as students, educators, and teenagers. Overall, the article uses a formal tone. However, I noticed that the writer is not consistent when referring to the target group. For example, the article uses terms such as kids, teenagers, and adolescents to describe the same group of people. Even though these words have similar meanings, using different terms throughout the articles affect the consistency. Besides that, there are also few informal expressions that do not really match the academic style of the article. Moving on to the content analysis. Overall, the article discusses both the positive and negative impacts of social media on teenagers, so the topic itself is relevant. However, I noticed that some explanations are quite general and do not provide enough details. For example, the writer mentions that social media improve teenagers' life but does not really explain how it improved them. I also found that some ideas are not organized very clearly. In certain parts of the article, the discussion moved between positive and negative impact without a smooth flow. Because of this, the article becomes slightly harder to follow and some points could have been explained more effectively. To conclude, the article contains several language, context, and content issues. Among the language errors identified, word choice and punctuation errors appear most frequently. These issues affect the clarity, organization, and professionalism of the article. Therefore, proofreading and editing are important because they help improve the quality of writing and ensure that the intended message is being conveyed clearly to the readers. And that is all for my presentation. Thank you for your time and attention.